Welcome to Module 2 of the Beginner Teacher Blueprint, where we're going to be getting down to business. This is the fun stuff, right? So the first thing I want to talk to you about is your studio policies. Now, I think a lot can be made of these, and maybe too much weight is placed on them these days in online forums and on Facebook and that kind of things. Policies are important to have, and you should put some thought into them, but don't stress over covering everything. The essential ingredients I think you have to have in your studio policies are some information about payments, missed lessons, what you're going to do when students aren't able to make it, and punctuality, lateness. So I think if you have those three bases covered, your policies are okay. So let's take a look at those three. First of all, your payment policies. There's two sides to this. The first side is, when are you going to get paid? When are students going to pay you? Could be the last Friday of every month. It could be the first lesson of each new month or semester. Just make sure it's detailed when the payment is actually due. And how are they going to be able to pay you? Are they going to pay by check or by cash, etc.? That's the real two big decisions you need to make for your policies. And then what is going to happen when they don't pay you? Make sure you have something detailed, whether it's late notices, an extra fee. There should be some kind of penalty that stops them from doing these things late or incorrectly. Then what is going to happen when your student has to miss a lesson? So this is another thing that is debated, and people talk about makeup lessons and all this sort of things. Personally, I don't offer makeup lessons of any kind, no matter what you mean by that. I invite students to get in touch with me in advance if they're going to be away, and I will attempt to reschedule it if I have an opening available, such as another student's cancellation. You can see exactly how I word this in my own policies at the back of the workbook. They're all there, exactly as I give them to parents. So you just need to come up with a solution that you're happy with, whether it's offering limited makeup lessons or offering group lessons in place of missed lessons. Whatever it is that you offer, just make sure it's detailed in your policy so that it's clear to everyone. And then punctuality. What is going to happen if your student is late? Are you going to wait there for the entire lesson length? Are you just going to sit there? Are you going to wait for a certain length of time? This is extra important if you're a traveling teacher. You do not want to sit outside a student's house for the full hour that you were supposed to be in their house just because you don't have anything detailed. So make sure that you write in that there's a 15-minute window and then you'll leave or something like that. Make sure you detail it and what will happen if you're late. I like to also spell out that if a student is late, the lesson will still finish at the exact same time, because they just might not realize that, and it's better to have it written down and laid out for everyone. Then the other policies you might want to think about including, which you'll see some of in the sample studio policies in the back of the workbook, are about recitals. Do you want to detail how many recitals there are per year or other performance opportunities? Vacation days or holidays, basically time off. What happens? When do you take breaks? And are you expecting students to study during the summer? Some teachers will put that in their policies, that they expect students to take a minimum of 4 lessons over the course of the 12-week summer, something like that. And in some cases, you may want to detail parking. This is only if it's applicable to your situation. If you have a shared parking lot outside your house where you teach, or there's a commercial space, and just if there's extra considerations there, I'd put that in your policies as well, so that it's all spelled out how they're supposed to park and what they're supposed to do with those parking spaces. And basically anything that is a frequent question or a frequent misunderstanding. Is there something that parents constantly think you're going to do one way and you actually do it another way? That's a good candidate for putting in your policies, and you should update them every year to include things that come up all the time. But not every instance, not every circumstance can be covered. So don't think that you have to cover everything. It should just be the most frequent things, the things that get asked all the time and that you need to be spelled out in a policy. Everything else can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Okay, now we come to all that money stuff. So when it comes to money, you need to think about what your fees and rates are, what the payment structure is. Is it going to be monthly or semesterly? Payment options, so check, cash, bank transfer, what are you going to accept? You need to take into account the equipment that you might need to pay for, and think about whether you want to have other income streams. So are there other things that are going to make up the rest of your annual income? Firstly, let's deal with the tuition fees. So the first thing you need to do is research the market. You need to know what other teachers are charging. You need to look at your costs and factor that in. Don't forget your costs. Your take-home pay is not going to be what you set your fees at. So make sure to be aware of what your costs are. And your annual income goal. What is it that you want to make every year? I think it's important that we take a look at that and work backwards as well. And most importantly, don't go too low. Please don't undervalue yourself. Even if you are a brand new beginner teacher, you still need to charge what you're worth. So when it comes to payment structures, you have two basic ideas that I think you should focus on. First is flat rate monthly, meaning you charge the same amount every month because it's averaged out across the year. So if it's €100 every month, then you charge that every month. It doesn't matter if there's 3 lessons or 5 because you've accounted for that in your pricing structure. Or you could charge by semester or term. These are the only 2 options that I think you should do. Do not charge a different amount every single month. Please don't accept cash at each individual lesson. These are the best 2 options out there, and if you start out with these from the beginning, you'll be set up much better for the long term. So when it comes to calculating your lesson fees, this is the basic formula you need. You've got the number of lessons per year times the rate per lesson and divided by the number of monthly payments if you're doing monthly. It really is that simple. It doesn't need to be a complicated maths equation. If you're not comfortable with maths, don't worry, we're going to walk through it. So let's say you calculate your student expenses like this. You have $300 for professional development each year. Stationery and binding costs you $150, equipment and books $350, recitals and events $500. That's things like hiring the hall or any other expenses there. Maybe you do group lessons and you need a special hall for that. That's $200, and maybe some advertising costs you $500 a year. Yours could be a completely different calculation. I've worked this out to be an even number, but you'll do your own calculation inside the workbook using the tables provided. So these total expenses come to $2,000, and the number of students we're going to have is 20, so that equates to $100 per student. The next calculation we need to make is our hourly teaching rate. What is it going to be? And I suggest, just as an exercise, to work backwards with this and start with your goal income per year. Now, obviously, nothing crazy, but something that you would be comfortable living on per year from your teaching. So I've chosen $35,000 here. That may be nothing where you live. It may be far more than you would need. You choose a goal, an income goal that makes sense for where you are. And then your total annual expenses, which we just calculated, those are $2,000. So gross income goal is $37,000. Then we divide this gross income goal by the number of students and then by the number of lessons in the year. And we get a per lesson rate of $50, which to me seems quite a good rate. When you come up with this rate at the end, maybe it'll be far too high and you need to rethink things and the market won't bear it. But I think it's important to do the calculation this way around anyway, just as an exercise. And then the last table here is about calculating your monthly tuition fees. So if there are 37 lessons per year and your per lesson rate is $50 and the number of months that you're going to be charging students for is 10, then your monthly rate would be $185. So you can use a workbook to fill this out for yourself and work out what your monthly rate might be. Then once you have your rates, obviously parents need to actually be able to pay you. So there's a few options. You can, of course, accept cash, take into account the fact that you will have to go to the bank to deposit this regularly, probably. You can accept checks, or you could come up with some kind of online option or bank transfer. Using PayPal or Stripe, in Ireland, direct bank transfer is actually way easier than PayPal and Stripe because everyone has internet banking. So this is the payment option that I offer for an automatic sort of payment, that they literally just enter the details and they can transfer instantly into my account, and that's the simplest. So obviously that's the one I like the best, and it comes with almost no fees. PayPal and Stripe will charge fees if you want to do it that way. You can also find a setup that accepts credit card using them, and the fees might be worth it to you. So think about where you are and how much time you'll be saving if you don't have to go to the bank, for instance, and chase people up for cash payments. Always think about time versus money, because it really does come down to that. Your time is worth money. I know it's said over and over again, but your time really is worth something. So if you're wasting time going to the bank and you hate the bank, then that's an extreme waste of time, isn't it? Because you also hate the activity. So think about whether PayPal or Stripe's fees might be worth it to you to automate it. And if you want to automate it further, you might like a system like My Music Staff that integrates with Stripe and PayPal, as far as I'm aware. I don't use My Music Staff, but I know that it's really well set up. I've, in fact, seen a trial version at a conference, so it does look fantastic. Tim absolutely loves it, and there is a special offer in the discount section in the Inner Circle if you want to give that a shot. It's a really comprehensive system with like scheduling, and it will also include options for payment as well, which is great. Then you also need to factor in your equipment. So when you're setting up your studio at first, you'll need a proper piano. You may want a second one. You may want a digital piano. If you're doing group lessons, you may want several. So have a think about what it is that you require for the type of teaching you want to do. For strict classical, extreme, heading off to conservatory students, you may insist on a grand piano. Now that might not be necessary for you at all. So think about what it is that you need for your studio and budget it out. And then think about other income streams. So what else could you do to make money? If your goal income per year and the number of students you can have works out at a per lesson rate that you know your market will just not bear, then you need to put in some other income streams. And you might try accompanying, selling stuff online, teaching resources, or other things. Maybe you're a crafter, maybe you're something else. So you could be selling various things online. You could do annual summer camps that bring in some extra income, or workshops, maybe ones that are open to students outside your studio as well, where students pay a fee to attend. Instrument sales or repairs, and gigs. Playing, performing in any situation where you can make money. So factor those in as alongside your teaching income if there's something that you're interested in. So that's all about money. everything to do with money. If you have questions about what we've discussed in this video, please ask them in the InnerCircle forums. We're here to help. Tag me and I'll jump in and try to help you out, and other members will as well.